think about goals or what do you want life to feel like in the next 3 to 6 months and start there. Um, what do you want this phase of life to look and feel like? And then once you have some clarity there, then what lands on your to-do list needs to fit within those goals or those values. And that helps clarify what's happening on a day-to-day basis.
Welcome to the Rebel Energy Podcast with me, your host, Jade Ellsbury. I'm a corporate dropout and multiple six-figure online business owner. My mission is to help you get out of the 9-to-5 mindset and create a new narrative for moms working from home to gain more freedom, more income, and living your dream life by cultivating your own rebel energy. So grab a glass of wine, get comfy, and let's dig in. Hi, Rebels. I'm here today with Valerie. I'm so excited. She's a productivity coach and a certified fair play method facilitator. She helps moms gain control over their to-do list, spend more time with their families, and end their days feeling accomplished, which I want to touch on all of that. I know a lot of our listeners need that as well, too, because I know at the end of the day, I'm like, what did I actually get done today?
Mhm.
So yeah, do you want to talk a little bit about like how you found your way to this?
Yeah. I will throw in there also that I'm in the as we're recording this, I'm in the process of becoming a certified relationship coach.
Oh,
There's a lot of
amazing.
words in there, but I'm working on that piece of it because it just feels important for my business.
Yeah.
Yeah, so um I love reading time management books, productivity books. I don't know why. I'm weird. I've just always loved reading those books. And I feel like for years I would spend time like listening to my friends talk about how busy they were
Mhm.
and never quite understanding like, are they happy being busy? Or are we just talking about this like busy as a badge of honor, which I think we wear that as a badge of honor in this country,
Yeah.
and just feeling like we could be doing better and how we're spending our time. And then the pandemic hit, and I at the time was switching my business from a professional organizing, personal organizing, to more of the productivity piece. And the pandemic hit, and I just watched moms just get hit so hard with everything. And I think the problems that moms have been experiencing have been there for decades, most likely, but just really were highlighted in the last few years. And I just really feel like we could be doing better. I'm reading books on mom rage and just kind of grasping and starting to understand how angry and frustrated and exhausted moms are. And I came across a book called Fair Play by Eve Rodsky. And I thought, this is the answer. Like, here is a tool or a method that we can use to really stop doing everything ourselves and learn how to communicate with our partners and with our kids. And really, you can use it with roommates, with your co-parenting, like whatever that looks like. Really diving into just how to talk through what's important to your family and how you're going to get through all the tasks without mom being the one constantly reminding everybody else what needs to happen and then coming in behind and redoing it because we don't like how it was done.
Yeah.
Um,
I
and
love
so here we are. That's
Yeah, that's great. There's so many things that you said are like mom rage, right? I feel like we all have that. I was like, tick co-parenting. Yes. And I'm divorced. So that's one thing, and I don't know if this is something you can maybe touch on that maybe this is kind of the direction we can go, but um, I feel like moms are expected to do the same thing in 2024 that we were expected to do in the 60s and 70s, but throw on a full-time job on top of that. I know
mhm,
for me, and again, I don't know if it's maybe the small town, we're more old school, but I know for a lot of my friends as well too, they're expected to work full-time, be in charge of all the children, pick up, drop off, right? If you're nursing baby, and then
mhm,
also too, kind of be a mom to their husband or significant other as well too. And that was one thing I think with the roles with, even my ex-husband and I, it was like he went to work and that's all he had to do. I had to
mhm,
bath time, and he was a great dad, like he played with the kids and things, but grocery list, finances, that was me. I'm also
mhm.
very type A. So, yeah, I don't know if that gives you anything, but I feel like that's a lot of women though too.
Hmm. Yeah, I think there's a lot to unpack there. I think some of it is just societal conditioning. We've just been told as women from a very young age. Maybe it was modeled to us by our parents, maybe it was society, combination thereof, that this is just what women do. We parent, we work full time, we parent, we take care of the household, and we could probably spend a whole other subject on or conversation around parenting our partners as well or
Yes.
taking care of them. That could be a whole other conversation.
Yes.
Um, and we can fall into those roles, even if like I was raised in a pretty egalitarian equality household. And we still, when we had our firstborn, I quit my corporate job, started my own business, and very quickly fell into the role of being a traditional stay-at-home parent, doing it, feeling obligated to do everything.
Yeah.
Because my husband was working, he was responsible for the healthcare and paying our mortgage. So I had to do everything else. And we fall into that trap, and it doesn't, we could do better than that. That's one of the what Eve Rodsky calls a toxic time message, that if you as women and are even if you are working full-time or part-time outside of the home, your job is likely you're paid less and your job is more flexible. So we go in with that like, well, of course you should be doing all of this other stuff. But your ability to be home, if you're lucky enough, or that's kind of what you how you've ended up, um, or you work part-time or your job is more flexible, like you are kind of the reason your partner can go work full time and go do all of that stuff because somebody else is taking care of all of this other stuff. And so it can get messy and complicated. It, it just gets messy and complicated in there, certainly. Yeah.
Yeah. And now it's so weird to me because now with, my new partner, I'm the breadwinner. And so I was actually able to retire him. We just had our own baby in June. And so I call it Mr. Mom, but it's so weird to me being like, hey, can you make sure the dishes get done today? Right. And like,
Mm-hmm.
baby, even recording this, he took the baby out. And so it's so cool to be able to do that. But I think he's struggling too of, again, he was raised the man provides. It doesn't make sense for him financially to work right now and then us, to pay for someone with
Mm-hmm.
daycare. And so again, right, Rebel Energy podcast, I feel like the name fits so well because I feel like with these new opportunities to work in the online space, we really are rebels because we're going against the grain
Mm-hmm.
where like my dad worked full time, my mom was at home, with all three of us. And yeah, it's a different time for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we don't do a good job in this society of supporting dads who do stay home.
Mhm.
We kind of like we just don't support them well. And I think it shouldn't matter who stays home. It's, if you're lucky enough to be in that position, then it's great. And we need to support that. And
Yeah.
yeah.
And recognize too, I think, because I've been on the other side of it, okay, I'll take the baby, you would take a break, right?
Hmm.
'Cause when I was first starting my online business 7 years ago, I had my son who was a newborn and a toddler, and so I know how hard it is trying to do all that, and I was working, obviously, trying to get my VA business up and going. Um, so one thing I definitely wanted to talk about on here, and this can kind of probably tie into it, of productivity with a lot of moms, right? A lot of my clients come to me and they're like, "I want to be able to stay at home with my kids." Um, but it's hard. They've got multiple kids, little ones. I'm going back through it again with the 7-year gap between my youngest and now my new youngest. And I'm like, holy shit, I kind of forgot how hard it is to balance everything. So, what are some things that you see women that are trying to start an online business, or I guess maybe even working a 9 to 5 right now while trying to get out of their 9 to 5 business, or yeah,
Hmm.
out of their 9 to 5, starting an online business? What are some things, and like how are you able to help them with feeling more productive when all the things are falling on their shoulders?
They're doing that. Yeah. So for me, and the where I start with my clients is looking at defining your values. What are maybe your values for your business, for your personal life and your family? They can be all the same, and in my world, for me, they are the same across the board. Depending on the age of your kids, they could be a part of that conversation.
Mhm.
Um, if the word values feels too big for you and you're listening to this and you're like, "Oh, that's never going to happen," think about goals, or what do you want life to feel like in the next 3 to 6 months, and start there. Um, what do you want this phase of life to look and feel like? And then once you have some clarity there, then what lands on your to-do list needs to fit within those goals or those values. And that helps clarify what's happening on a day-to-day basis. So if you want to travel to a country to practice your Spanish, you need to learn Spanish every day. What does that look like, right? Are you taking a Spanish class once a week as a family? Are you doing it online? A little bit every day? Like you need to like break those bigger goals down into very small steps. And then that will guide what you do each day or each week. And then, of course, there's always 85 other things that need to happen, right? The laundry and the dishes and the cleaning and the taking your kids to and from school, and what happens when there's a snow day or they're homesick or
Oh,
there's
yeah.
a teacher planning day, right? You have to kind of plan for all of that as well.
Yeah.
But when you have the bigger stuff in there, then okay, today I'm going to practice Spanish for 3 minutes and that's it. And I'm just maybe next week I'll make a little more time. Or, you've got a big project at work and you break that down into very small steps. So you're like, okay, I have 30 minutes right now. What can I focus on? And because you've broken those projects down into smaller steps, you can sit down and like knock out 3 steps.
Yeah.
Um, and knowing that that project is something that you want to be working on right now. So you might be in a phase of life where you really do want to launch some side business, but you do have a newborn and a toddler and a business, and like you just know in the next few months that this isn't going to happen, and giving yourself that grace to move through this phase, knowing it's not going to last forever and there will be some time at some point. Or is it just kind of doing some networking and kind of laying the groundwork for when you are ready to launch your business?
Mhm.
Um, Starting there. So starting with your values and your goals, because that really helps define the big things that are on your plate. And like for me, I work from home. My desk is in the kitchen. There are dishes right next to me all the time.
Yeah.
And I have to focus on, like, I get distracted with clutter, right? Like it's taken me, I have to very much, there are days I would rather just go clean my kitchen and clean my house because that feels way better than whatever project I'm working on for my business, because I don't see the fruits of that labor for a while. Whereas I
Yeah.
can see a clean kitchen or a decluttered living room.
Yeah.
And so focusing like, okay, I will go clean the kitchen after I have done these 4 tasks for work. I'm going to do these 2 tasks. I'm going to take a break and go load the dishwasher. I'm going to come back and finish up these 2 tasks. Maybe it sounds like I'm rewarding myself by doing dishes, and that's not what I mean, but it's just like, it's easy to get distracted by other stuff. And
Yeah.
so focusing on when you're going to do those tasks, I tend to front load my day. I need to do my more important stuff first thing, or I get more drained. If you know that your kids take long naps, or you have quiet time and you're going to have that time in the afternoon to make that happen, focus on, that's the time you're going to sit down. And instead of doing all these household chores, 3 days a week, you're going to sit down and focus on work stuff. If you're working full time, that's a whole other thing. One of the other things that I have clients do is track their time. And by tracking your time, I don't mean like sitting down at the end of the day and writing out what you did, but like every 30 minutes to an hour, stopping what you're doing and writing down what you're in the middle of. So you have a very accurate map of where your time is going. So then you might see like, oh, hey, I feel like I'm not spending enough time with my kids, but actually, look at all this wonderful time we're having together. I'm just feeling very distracted by all of this other stuff.
I love that.
Or you might feel like, oh, wow, I really am not spending time with my kids, or, but like it helps to have that accurate picture of where your time is going. So then we can look at, where do you want to be spending your time? How do you want this to look and feel? And let's get you there.
Yeah. I actually just recently got diagnosed with ADHD about a year ago. I am not on medication or anything like that for it, but one thing, and I've actually seen a lot of entrepreneurs that have ADHD. Like, I think it might
Mhm.
be our superpower because we need to constantly be busy and doing 100
Yeah.
million things, but, I love that because, my 2 older kids, they're with their dad 50% of the time. So we do 1 week on, 1 week off. The week I don't have the kids, it seems like it flies by, and yes, I do have a baby, with me at home, but at the end of those days, because I work, right? I work and work and work. And so, yes, I'm in there in between, helping my fiance, like take her, I nurse her. I'll take breaks to do that and things. But at the end of those long work days, I'm like, what did I actually get done? Like, I know I got things done. I know I was behind my computer, but I think within that, again, ADHD, I'm doing one thing and then I'm like, "Oh, yeah, that reminds me to do something else," and I'll open up another tab and
Mhm.
I'll work on
Mhm.
that. So I love that idea, and as you were saying that with the 30 minutes, I was like, "I need to do this," but, I don't know if you've ever heard, like, the Focus Keeper app, but it does there's a name for it. What's that name where
Like
it's like
the Pomodoro
yes.
technique or uh-huh.
Yes, yes. I'm
Yep.
like, I know it's got an actual name, but I used to do that all the time as a virtual assistant. And what you were kind of saying too, the reward, right? Like working for 25 minutes, because I will go all day without eating, drinking,
Mm.
not healthy. And so the 5,
Mhm.
okay, I'm gonna go pee quick. Like even that,
Right.
I'll sit behind my computer without that app and I'll go 4 hours without even getting up. Right.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I think that's a great reminder.
Yeah. And figuring out even if like 25 minutes feels too short, I will do like I'm going to work on this particular task and when this task is done, then I will take a break. So I find like even if maybe it's 45 minutes or I'm going to work for an hour and then take a 15-minute break. So don't feel like you have to do the 25 minutes. It can very much be I'm going to work on this task and when this task is done, then I'm going to go do this other thing.
Mhm.
I'm going to set a timer and process email for 30 minutes, and then I'm going to shut off my email um, app or tab or however you do that, and go do something else. Um, and so you're focusing on one thing at a time. And then, I mean, maybe at the end of the day, you've got 45 tabs open on your internet, but hopefully you've done a few things in there.
Mhm.
Um, and when you've clarified that ahead of time and you're crossing those things off your list, then at the end of the day, like, okay, might not feel like I did anything, but I did these two things that really moved my business forward or moved my side hustle forward. And now I know. And maybe that doesn't always feel like enough, but I think I believe in small steps um, really do start to add up after a while.
Tired of making 3K in your virtual assistant business? In Rebel Energy Coaching, we have multiple tiers to help you grow and expand your income within your online service based business. I've been able to build $1 million brand, but it stemmed from creating a solid foundation as a virtual assistant. And that's what we help you do in Rebel Energy Academy. We don't just help you get started, we help you discover your purpose online. DM me GROW if you are ready to scale to 5K and beyond. Yeah. And as entrepreneurs, I can't remember, it was one of my mentors, but I was told, I'm like, I've got this huge list of things I need to do. And she said, you will always, as an entrepreneur, there'll always be something else that you can be doing. Always.
Hmm.
If you
Always.
want a list of 100 things, you can do that. And so I try to remind myself because I also have very bad anxiety. And so if I was to share my to-do list for this week, you'd be like, holy crap. And a lot of it I've just kept pushing down the line because as an entrepreneur, there's more important things that will be popping up. And so like
Mm-hmm.
getting my new website up and going, right? Like that's fallen to the bottom. And that's been on my list for months. I actually just went and outsourced it because I'm like, I'm never going to actually sit down and do this. I don't have the
Hmm.
time. So what would you say for someone that's maybe again, high anxiety, they feel like they just always have this big long list. Because I agree with you, right? Like getting maybe just like making a list of like a few things, but how would you recommend that women maybe go about that if they have no idea and it just feels like the list just keeps growing?
Keeps growing. Yeah. So it comes back to those values and goals. Start there. clarify those, and then spend some time. And I know it feels like you do not have this time, but I promise that this is worth the like even 10 minutes, and go through that list and truly see like, does everything on this list belong there? Because for me, if I've been pushing something off from month to month,
Mhm.
maybe I either need to just do it and be done with it, make it a priority and knock it out, or just cross it off and carry on with my life and not do it. I'm just gonna be done with it because there's a reason we're avoiding something.
Mhm.
Um, and so taking some time to just really make sure that what is on your big list belongs there. And then I think we tend to just overwhelm ourselves with massive lists of it's like everything that ever needs to happen versus one that maybe there's the like someday list. So I actually have something on my to-do list for this month for my business that really belongs on my someday for my business. Like it's not a priority this month. I haven't taken the time to figure out where to put it just yet.
Yeah.
But it's pulling the things that are someday. They're not the like, I'm gonna have to do this at some point, but like I would like to do this for my business. Get that off the list and put it on a someday list. And maybe it's sorting those lists. So I'm a paper calendar person. You could do this digitally too, where I have tasks that like I know I need to do something. Like I need to sign my kids up for swimming lessons in the spring. That's not going to be on a task list right now. I
Yeah.
have it written down in December of my paper calendar to remind myself when I get the new calendar that in January or February, I then need to sign my kids up. But I don't need that on my list right now because it's not happening anytime soon. And
Yeah.
so, like, are there tasks that can be done that need to be done in a certain month or that you can just kind of push off a little bit? So you can, or pull out if that feels too much. Like, what are the things that need to happen in this month, in the next 2 weeks, this week, and pull those off of that list and just put the giant list aside and focus on the smaller piece of tasks. Because otherwise, you're staring at this giant list and your brain is just going to go, I can't, I'm not doing it today. And you're not going to get anything done.
Yeah.
Um, and then also making sure that those tasks are tasks and not projects. Um,
Do you wanna
and
break that
that's,
a little bit for
yeah. So I had a personal example. So for years, not years, for we'll say months, I had a couple years ago, we took a camping trip to Yellowstone. So I live in Denver, we're like a 10-hour drive. We wanted to go camp in Yellowstone. And so for a while, just my to-do list just said Yellowstone. And I looked at that and my brain's like, I don't know what you mean by that. Like, what do we need to do with this? And so I didn't work on it for a long time. And I finally sat down one day and just wrote down all of the tasks that involve planning a trip. So when do reservations for camping at Yellowstone open up? What campgrounds do we want to stay in? What are going to have the accommodations that we want? What do we want to do while we're there? Is there a specific time of summer we want to go? How are we getting up there? Because we were hauling a camper, like we weren't going to make that trip in one day. How many days do we want to take to drive up there? And where are we stopping along the way? And when do those campgrounds, when do their reservations open? And so now I have this list of tasks that I can do. So maybe one day it was, okay, I'm just going to play around on Yellowstone's website and see what campgrounds they have. That's all. Just see, like, make a list of, like, oh, this looks nice. And I'm looking at a map and I'm like, all right, we can come in this entrance and we can stay at these two campgrounds. They're, 30 minutes away from each other. And this makes more sense than like doing it this other direction. Okay. So check. I now have a list of campgrounds we want to stay and like a general timeline of what that looks like. Okay, when do reservations open? They opened 13 months in advance. So now I have to mark my calendar. Okay, in July of this year, I'm going to hop on their website and make reservations for next summer. Um, I think when I did do that the first time, it was already booked. We had to push our trip back a month. Um, so it was, but like, so it's easier to tackle those tasks versus a bigger project.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I'm releasing a workshop in for the holidays. Like as we're recording this, it's earlier than that, and I've had to write down like what needs to happen to work to like launch this thing because I need to know what I need to do and when. Are there certain deadlines I need to have? Like I need to have most of it done by the end of October, but really I just need my landing page to share, knowing that I don't need everything done when I'm sharing my landing page because maybe there's some wiggle room in there. But like there's a long list of things that need to happen so
Mhm.
that when I have the time or the energy, I can sit down and be like, all right, today I'm going to work on the script for the audio that I need to record. And I'm going to just, that's all I'm going to do versus feeling very overwhelmed by this giant project that like your website might be, if it just says website, like you're never going to get to that. But if it's schedule headshots, you can do that. If it's
Yeah.
write content for the About Me page, can totally do that. But just a generic website on your task list,
Yeah, because
you're
you
just
know
like,
everything
what?
that goes into that, and you see that, and you're like, "Oh, that's so overwhelming," right? And, like,
Mm-hmm.
figuring out the platform and yeah, all that
Mm-hmm.
so that makes a lot of sense, because I know too, from coaching that a lot of times women will, have this big daunting thing, and then that's when, like, the self-sabotage
Mm-hmm.
kicks in, right? Because it just or in their mind, because they are so busy, they're like, "Well, I don't have 5 hours," right? So
Mm-hmm.
I was breaking that down, I'm like, "Yeah, that makes sense," because with the website, in my mind, I'm like, "Well, I don't have 5 or 6 hours to, like, go and work on it," where if I mean, again, I've already outsourced it, but I was like, that's just not something I need to be
Which
spending
is,
my time on," but
yeah, that's okay. Also, a very viable option. If that's something that you can do and it makes sense for you, then just outsource it.
yeah,
And I say that lightly, like it's outsourcing is still a project in and of itself because you still have to find somebody to do that work, understand the quality of their work, communicate. Like they're probably not writing all the copy for you, or you at the very least have to work with them. Like outsourcing is not as simple as just outsource it. Like it's a whole project
still
in and of itself.
full time. And actually, luckily for me, my OBM was like, "I'll just go do it for you." It's like, "Oh, awesome." And she did, right? But a lot I know there's a lot of listeners who are like, "I don't have that right now," or,
Hmm.
and I think too, something else that I've outsourced, if you will. I know we were talking about, you know, getting housework done. That's
Hmm.
something where before, when I was, just getting my VA business up and going, I spent every Saturday, like, deep cleaning our entire house, where
Mm.
now, right, I'm lucky enough that I can pay someone to come and do that.
Hmm.
Obviously, right, we'll still take the trash out, do the dishes, try to stay up on the laundry. I hate laundry, but, that's something that, like, I've been blessed enough now where it's like, okay, that used to be a priority. Now I can pay someone else to do that. So I've got time to record these podcasts or, work on my new consulting agency and different things like that. Um, so, yeah, I think it's that prioritizing of, like, where is my time the most valuable?
Hmm.
And, I wish we had more time to just go over, like, a whole thing too, but, like, with the work-life balance, I've been told, like, that's not an actual thing, right, during different seasons. Um, and that was one thing too where I was like, "When am I ever going to feel like my life is balanced?" And even with me being at home, my fiancé being at home now, having a new baby, I feel like every day it's kind of that juggling act, but I
Hmm.
think too we need to remember that we started the business to have the freedom and the flexibility to do these things as they come. I don't I trying to even get back into a routine has been hard with a new baby, and so,
Hmm.
like, today, I'm like, I chose to sleep in, baby girl has not been sleeping well, and I did my workout later. Again, I know it's a season. I love routines, but I think what you had said at the beginning, recognizing it's a season and trying to embrace the fact that I don't have to be on a strict schedule.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
almost a
And
double-edged sword sometimes, right? Where it's like,
yeah.
I
Yeah.
almost have too much freedom and, you know, how am I gonna be able to get all this done with all the time that I have?
Yeah. Yeah. I have so many thoughts in there. I'll try to make them quick. I think, yeah, absolutely. Like even once you get a routine going, like your kids are going to change, the season's going to change, it's going to mess things up,
Yep,
certainly. So I think I think you need a combination of a routine and flexibility. I like to look at our time. I've heard it compared to like, I'm not a fan of work-life balance. I think it's a crock. I think we've
yep,
just been fed this like belief that we're never going to get to. And then it makes us feel like we're failing because we're like, why can't I do this magic thing that
yeah,
isn't actually possible?
yeah,
I've heard it compared to a symphony where like sometimes one section is louder than the other, but at the end they all come together and sound wonderful. And so sometimes you're going to work more, sometimes you're going to be home with your kids. Um, this week for me, I've had one of my Thursday and Friday, my kids are off on fall break, so they're home. I'm not getting any work done. One of my other kids has been home sick. Like this week has just been like my original plan has kind of been thrown out the window. I also like to look at it as toddler nutrition. So when my kids were toddlers, we were taught that like sometimes your kids will eat nothing but strawberries one day and nothing but sweet potatoes for the next 3 days and nothing but like scrambled eggs because their bodies, if they're listening to their bodies, they know their bodies know what they need and they're saying, I need more protein or I need more of this or that. And so on any given day, it might look like they're not getting a well balanced meal, right? We've been taught as adults, like, your meal should be well balanced and they should look like this. And toddlers are like, nope, today I just need protein. And tomorrow my body will tell me I need something else. But over the course of a week, they most likely have eaten a well balanced meal, whatever, like their body will have gotten what it needs. And so, again, I think we fall into this like, well, every day I need to have done all of these things. Like that's not necessarily true. Like some days you're just gonna, it's a snow day and your kids are home and you just have to scrap work and hang out with your kids, and that's okay. And other days your kids have to go to school or a friend's house or just watch TV all day because you need to get things done. And that is also okay. And making space for all of that and looking at it over the course of a week is usually kind of that's sort of the toddler piece of it is like, okay, over the course of a week, have I checked all these boxes that are important to me? Have I met the values in the way that I want to be living my life? And if the answer is yes, then it's okay if you had one day that all you did was work and your kids watch TV, or all you did was hang out with your kids, or some combination thereof, ran errands. Um, because you are doing all of it, just not all in one day and not all at the same time. But I think we've just been fed this belief that like you must make sure you get an equal number of all of this stuff every day. And that's just
Great
not as
mindset.
possible.
I'm gonna start thinking that way too, of like looking at it, and it's so funny because we say the same thing with our numbers, right? Like if you look at like our KPI tracker, like, they say don't base your amount of sales off of one day or
Hmm.
even 1 week, right? Like look at the like 2 to 4 week period. So I'm gonna start to do that as well
Hmm.
too, because I feel like some days it's like, oh, all I did today was work. Or, like there's a day too where, example, my friend was going through a really hard time and I was like, you know what? I'm going to reschedule all my calls. I don't do that very often, but
Sure.
you really need me today. I'm going to go ahead and reschedule 'em. And then I just took an entire day off. And
Yeah.
again, not feeling guilty for that because that's why we've built our business. So, or
Hmm.
again, if our kids are sick, as long as we're not doing it every day, right?
Right.
Good. It's work every single day, but I love that. I'm gonna start looking at like the end of the week and the bigger picture with my kids versus I think from the day to day. I like that a lot.
Hmm. It feels better. And it's a hard mind. I'm not saying that's an easy mindset shift to get to,
Yeah.
but I think it's easier to get there in terms of like, okay, over this week I have done all these things and done all of that.
Yeah, giving yourself a little bit of grace of like, you know what, maybe I didn't get, those 2 hours of quality time I wanted with my kids, but or maybe you're in the middle of a launch, but I've got half a day
Mhm.
on Saturday blocked off where it's just going to be hanging out with my kiddos. And
Yeah.
I think that's definitely more doable, and again, it gives us as moms some grace in between there as well too. So,
Yeah.
I got some great takeaways myself from this call. I think that I really needed that because, yeah, I'm definitely in this different season, of having, like, the older kids and, like, kind of restarting with a newborn, and, it's kinda taking me back a little bit of like, "Wow, like, this is what my clients are going through," right? They just have toddlers. So I love this so much. Thank you so much for your time today, Valerie. I really, really appreciate it. I know that there's some good nuggets in here for our listeners as well too. So, is there anything that you want to highlight? I know you kind of said something about a workshop you're going to be launching in December. Do you want to share a little bit more?
Sure. So it'll be right before Thanksgiving. I'm launching we'll just call the working title for today a holiday bundle, but it's it's all about kind of using fair play to help you create magic for the holidays, and not just mom. Like as mom, you get to have magic in there as well. And the essence of it will be how to hold a family meeting with everybody in your household on the holidays, so that it's not mom doing everything. And it will be offered, there'll be two offers there, just the course itself or a course and some coaching with me to kind of support you through December if that is what feels right for you. So,
Um,
yeah.
definitely needed for sure. I know it's October, middle of October, and I'm already like, okay, it's my birthday, my son's birthday in November, Thanksgiving. And then we all know as entrepreneurs, I feel like December just flies by very quick.
Hmm.
So yeah, I like that so much. Well, thank you so much. And one more thing, if anyone
Hmm.
wants to be able to follow you, reach out to you, what is the best way to go do that?
Yeah, so head to my website, strideproductivity.com, and it will have access to my newsletter, it'll have something about the workshop when that, or I never know what to call these things. We'll just workshop for today, right?
Yeah,
Um, we'll have information on that when that goes live. And you can find me on Instagram, also at Stride Productivity. But really just head to my website because you can find everything you need right there.
okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Valerie. I really appreciate it today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.